Most of the photographs and video that we see coming back from Iraq right now, almost all of it is filmed by local Iraqi stringers, and they're in huge danger even. For a foreigner, it's doubly so. I came in right at the end of April and stayed for 2 years, basically. And I went out a couple times for film festivals, but I was essentially in the country for 2 years straight. I never came back to the United States during that time. I always worked with local Iraqi translators, fixers, that kind of thing. So when I was filming, there was always, or almost always, one other person with me. In the beginning, it was simply a matter of convenience because my Arabic isn't strong enough to conduct interviews. I've never actually studied Arabic formally. But as time wore on and the situation in terms of security really started to deteriorate in the country, especially after the first year, it became also a security concern, that if you wind up in a place and you're by yourself and people start asking you questions, and you can't answer and a crowd forms, you need to have someone around who can explain your presence immediately and satisfactorily to people.
الديمقراطية وهي الديمقراطية هي الحرية ل20 صاروا لحلفين راح صدام جميل صدام مكان.
You live in the United States and you watch things on television, read in the newspaper, and it's difficult to get a kind of nuanced, realistic view of what's happening in the country. And that's what being on the ground gives you hope. As a foreign journalist or as a foreign documentary filmmaker, when you had the opportunity, as we did during that first year and a half, to move around in the country and really talk to people and spend time with people and keep on coming back to people and see how people's views were changing over time. That was a time when it was really possible to get this kind of very detailed, nuanced view of the country if you were willing to do that work. In the United States, we have been presented with the simple version. And the simple version is, in Iraq there are Shiites and Sunnis and Kurds, and they all kind of don't like each other for different reasons, and the country is kind of breaking along these lines. And were that it were that simple, there's a long history of fairly secular kind of culture within the country where people are not identifying themselves first by their particular religious sect. Kurds are very unhappy being under Baghdad rule, and they don't want to continue that. At the moment, they are autonomous. You can say they're running their own affairs. They're not really governed by Baghdad. They do what they want, and they simply haven't declared a state, but all of the mechanisms of an actual state are already in place, and they have been since before the invasion. It isn't this simple division, where you could say, okay, we're going to divide the country like Sunni, Shia, Kurd, and then everything will be fine because everyone will have their spot. What happens if you declare a Kurdish state in northern Iraq? If you have anything like the kind of chaotic situation you have now, you immediately get waves of ethnic cleansing, and hundreds of thousands of people would be forced out of their homes, and they have to leave behind all their possessions and be driven out to the north, and vice versa. Of course, I want to say that I hope that people watch the film and suddenly appreciate Iraq in a completely different way. On the other hand, I also know that it would be the height of hubris for me as a director to say that I can, in 94 minutes, sum up this country the size of France with 25 million people in it, you know, all of whom are thinking something slightly different from one another. And I think the most that I can hope to do with a film like this is to give people these, you know, little chinks in the wall that they can kind of look through and see parts of the picture. You know, as I say, in this country we're concerned mostly in the media with coverage of U.S. Troops and U.S. interests, I guess. But there are, you know, other things going on, and I think if you put the Iraqi perspective first, or at least have it on the table as something that you're thinking about as an American, it would probably help you, you know, if you were formulating policy, for example, to avoid the sort of massive catastrophes that we've been having so far in our, you know, occupation of the country.
يعني مجرد أن يفهمون القوة بس.
القوة ما تنام العراقي.
العراقي أي شعب المفروض فهم الدرس. أي دراسة
هذا عندنا نجاح
عن عاداتنا، عن تقاليدنا، يعني ما ممكن تقدر تغيرنا أنت بالدفع. من المستحيل.